Hey friends, this is your host Mauricio on episode number 4 of Ordinary Heroes Better in 20. I've gotten so many good comments about our last episode with Pastor Wesley from Ground 40 that I wanted to reflect on a couple of his thoughts that he shared. As a reminder, he is a man that went from a broken home to drug addiction to prison. At prison, he got saved and the Lord began a transformation. He is now a pastor. His family is restored and he's now investing his life in helping men impacted by homelessness, addiction, and incarceration to meet Jesus. If you have not checked his site, it is called ground40.com. It is a nonprofit organization you can donate and help men out of prison come back to their families and communities as changed men. He shared the program is not a 2-week thing. It's several months of counseling and discipleship. So amazing. So today's episode, there are 4 aspects that I want to take a moment and dissect from our conversation in episode 3. The first thing I want to highlight is resolve. By resolve, I mean good intentions, that if not followed with surrender to Jesus, is just a thought that fades away. You see, Pastor Wesley had told himself he was going to do better than his dad. His father and him did not have a close relationship, and unfortunately, his dad did not invest in his spiritual walk. So Wesley determined he was going to be different. But he said, apparently, it turned much worse. There were several moments in his life, opportunities you could say, in which he thought, this is it, now I'm going to change. But resolve alone is not enough. Resolve by itself is not the ticket of transformation. It is great if you have a drive to be better, but for this drive to impact the lives of your loved ones, you need to combine resolve and surrender to the life-changing power of Jesus. If you have moments like this, where you think, okay, now I'm really going to do better, most likely you are struggling with something, as we all do. I urge you to do different this time. Instead of making a stronger resolve to be better, turn to Jesus, surrender to his leading, and let him change you. Something we as parents experience often is the end of day regret. Perhaps we lost our temper with our kids, or we said something we should not have to our spouse, or we yelled and disciplined unfairly. That feeling of enough of this whatever behavior you're frustrated about, is your opportunity to let God work. Don't shut it down. Instead, come to God and surrender to what he's trying to show you. The second thing I want to highlight is our darkest hour. The words Pastor Wesley used after he had experienced so much defeat, after thinking time and time again, this is not me, I need to be better, and failing time and time again. His frustration was so deep that he submitted his life to death, meaning he wanted to die. He felt so defeated, despite his best efforts to be a better man, that things kept going from bad to worse. A friend of mine once told me about the darkest hour of the soul. I have experienced those a few times. The moment where you have exhausted all your strength in being better, but fail. And your rope is gone. You have no rope. And you find yourself desperate, completely out of options, ideas, to whatever problem you're facing. It could be financial, emotional, relational, spiritual. But one thing I learned, this is the perfect opportunity where you must look up. You know, it's unfortunate. God sometimes has to bring us to hard times for us to look up. The Bible encourages us in Psalms 32 verse 9, do not be like the horse or the mule, which have no understanding, but must be controlled by bit and bridle, or they will not come to you. So yeah, ideally we don't suffer. We just listen and obey without feeling the burn of our own stubbornness, doing life in our own strength. But in reality, God may be giving you a challenging time so you can surrender and look up. See, oftentimes we don't look up. We look around. We look for people to find our next ounce of energy. But my friend, again, look up. One thing that jumped at me from Pastor Wesley's story is the way that his friend Jack told him about the gospel in prison. He received the gospel in a very unique, harsh tone. He was told he was not good enough, that there was nothing with him good. Very discouraging, right? He later explained, you cannot receive the good news of the gospel until you understand how desperate your situation is. And today we live in a world that wants you to feel good about yourself. The problem with that is, when you think you're all you need, there's no room for Jesus. For us to realize the need of a Savior, we must first recognize we cannot save ourselves. And here, I'm not just talking about salvation, but also everyday life. You can't become a better parent if you don't recognize that within yourself, you are at the end of the rope and you are now looking to Jesus for help. So perhaps God is bringing you to a dark hour so you can come to grip with the realization that you need to stop relying on yourself and start looking to Him. So in the theme of transformation, I started reading a book, They Found the Secret by Raymond Edman. And something that caught my eye is this quote: climbing in the Spirit is accomplished by kneeling and not running, by surrender and not by determination. See, oftentimes we'll do the opposite. We run and we do more things, and we have a stronger determination, but we don't stop to kneel. We don't stop to surrender. And that is key. Then, talking about the darkest hour, there's another quote: despair of self leads to utter desperation, but beyond these mists lies the sunshine of God's presence. See, guys, God is waiting for us to come to Him. Just look at the prodigal son. Luke 11:13 lays it clear. God will fill you with the Spirit, and that is the only way to be transformed. The third thing I want to highlight is our expectations. When me and Wesley were background extras at The Chosen, we had a very interesting conversation. I shared with him my relationship with my son was not ideal. He assumed I was talking about a teenager, but his eyes opened wide when I told him my son is 4 years old. See, I have 3 sons. 2 of them are 1, so I'm not yet working on them. But I told Wesley, I expect a lot of my son. In the last 10 years or so, I have learned a lot of what it is to be a man. And here I am, cramming all I know into a tender 4-year-old boy, expecting him to be and act like me. It sounds crazy, but it gets worse. It has taken me 4 years to realize that me and my son are 2 different people, 2 different men. I see the world much different, and I have now accepted that it's okay. I mean, we're both in different stages, so I don't need to make him me. One thing Wesley told me that is still sinking, he said, God is using your son to teach you how to be the father he needs. See, I had it all wrong. I've been trying to make my son me, but God has his own plans for him, and we must trust his plan is perfect. Pastor Wesley also pointed out a common goal parents have is we want them to know God like we do, and that is great. But the way in which we go about it is a problem. In wanting our kids to have what we have, we forget that God has a plan for each one of our kids. The problem is we don't trust the Lord to reveal himself to our kids, and we think, okay, God is going to miss us on this opportunity. Let me sprinkle my experience and knowledge so they don't follow on the same steps. And sometimes we complicate God's will. If you really think about it, God's will is salvation and sanctification, to know God and to love Him. This requires an individual walk with Christ, and our role is simply to guide our children to have such walk and let God do the rest. Wesley mentioned a common mistake that we do is beat religion into our kids. We put a cookie cutter mold into them so they can be us instead of more like Jesus. If you really ask yourself, do I want my kids to be me? If I'm honest, no, I have so many flaws, but I do want them to be more like Jesus. And that will look different for each kid. So I must trust them to Jesus, and Jesus works in them. My wife and I homeschool. In July, we went to a homeschool conference, and a method that Simply Charlie Mason uses is living books, books that don't need explaining, just reading and absorption. They talk about how poetry is received, not taught. And see, oftentimes we read the Bible to our kids and we put in our 2 cents. Lately, I'm just reading the Bible as it is and letting them react, letting them ask questions. Or not. My son just listens sometimes and doesn't say anything, but then days later, he blows me away with a thought. See, the encouragement here is don't think you have to see immediate reception. Let the word sink and allow God to work. That'll be much more impactful than us giving your own thoughts about a verse, complicating the truth God is trying to show. So instead of putting expectations on our kids about how they should receive our faith, the challenge is us. Be the example. Intercede for our children. Trust that God is fighting for us and not against us. And the last aspect I will touch on is purpose. See, some of us are aware of our need from God to help us. Some are not. Wesley said, "A man who is unconcerned is a dangerous man." When you think things are good enough, that you're not that bad, at least you're not like her or him, and that is cue, my friend. That is time to ask God, what does he think? A parent who is concerned, a parent who is seeking will find that which he or she seeks. Jeremiah 29:13, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Pastor Wesley's final advice, and I quote, trust the Lord. Look what he did for me. I wasn't even looking for him. He found me in a jail. The one thing I will always remember about Pastor Wesley is that he often said he likes to share his testimony, not only for the benefit that is obvious, but more to remind himself where he came from and what God did for him. So yeah, talk to your children about how God is transforming you and do it often, and that will be very impactful. So I will end up with some questions. Are you interceding for your children in prayer? Are you trying to force your children into your mold? I hope this was helpful. Something that is coming soon in an episode to come is I recently spoke with a dear friend. Her name is Becky. She's an awesome lady. You meet her and you feel blessed. She has a way to spiritually impact you. I know she has impacted me and my wife. So a little background on her. In following God's call for her life, she got certifications in the subject of raising children. These certifications took a lot of time and money. When she got her hard-earned diploma, she was asked, what are you going to do with this knowledge? She said, I'm going to be a nanny. The leaders that she spoke with were shocked, said this was a waste. Her response was that she was following God's plan for her life, and she has spent the last several years learning, observing, and making notes that she has not yet published. And she has agreed to share that with us, so it's coming. The episode will be called When Lions Roar, so stay tuned. Again, thank you so much for taking the time today. I hope there was something that inspired you, and I'll see you on the next one.